welcome to this video. I'm Ophelia, and in today's video I'm super excited to share with you this book, Rebel Witch, Carve the Craft That's Yours Alone by Kelly-Ann Maddox. This is actually my first book review on YouTube. I have done some book recommendations and little bits and pieces, but I usually review books over on my website. I've decided I would aim to start reviewing books here, so let me know what you think. If you want to check out any of the past books that I reviewed, then please do go over to my website, as there are loads of books on there. If you are looking for a witchy book, then I'm sure you will find something that will interest you. I'll put the link to my website below. On to today's book review then. In order to be fully transparent, I received a free copy of this book for review. I use NetGalley to apply for new and upcoming releases to review, and Watkins Publishing actually very kindly sent me a physical copy of this book. The book was described as a contemporary take on how to be a witch. Rebel Witch is an antidote to the cookie-cutter witchcraft agenda that gives a new perspective on the craft, asking each reader to create a powerful, personalised practice that taps into the current mood of female empowerment and spiritual rebellion. So that's the main reason that it stood out to me, just because it sounded like something I would really enjoy to read. So the blurb on the back of the book, for those of you that are interested, it says, "Rebel Witch does not seek to tell you what to do. Its aim is to spark inspiration and encourage you to create a truly authentic practice that reflects your unique experiences, tastes and personality. It's about trying things out, swerving the stuff that feels dusty and boring, and choosing only what makes your heart dance the witchy fandango." If you're at the beginning of your journey, Rebel Witch covers all the craft basics, from casting spells and divination to energy and shadow work, offering tons of ideas as a launch pad for your own. And if you've been claiming the witch for years, you'll find a myriad of ways of shaking things up, whether you are reinventing the Wheel of the Year, choosing your favourite children's book as a sacred text, or constructing your own deity from the icons you admire. You get to build a practice that makes you feel fizzy, and that's a guarantee of potent results. Through history, witches have rebelled against society, so be brave, be bold, be inspired, be empowered to do things your way. I think that blurb pretty much sums up the book, so I might as well just leave the review there. Only joking. Okay, so I didn't really know much about the author, Kelly-Ann Maddox, before this book, but as soon as I knew I would be receiving a copy, I did do a little bit of research, and it did make me want to read the book a whole lot more. I came across her YouTube channel, which I will link to below, and there are tons of videos on there that I am slowly starting to work my way through. You may already know about the author, Kelly-Ann, and I've ended up here because of the book, but I'm the other way around. I discovered the book and then discovered everything else that she'd done. And I'm really glad that I did come across her work on the craft, as well as her YouTube channel. She's a tarot reader, a tarot teacher, a certified spiritual counsellor, and now she writes books. So she's just a real inspiration to me at the moment. And she did write the book during several lockdowns that we've had here in the UK. So that's definitely, again, like I said, a little bit of an inspiration to me. Before getting into the content itself then, I just wanted to talk about the front cover, because it is just so beautiful. I even painted my nails blue to match the artwork, which was designed by Lloyd. Again, I'll put her details below so you can check out her art, because it is all just as stunning as this cover, and like I said, I do love the colours that she's used, the blues and the teals. I'm really into this colour at the moment. Okay, so before I give you my personal thoughts, I just want to share a little bit of the main features of the book, so what's included and how it's organised. So it has been really thoughtfully organised into 3 sections. There's Let's Begin, Make It Happen, and Let's Keep Growing. So section 1 covers the main purpose of the book, what is a witch, the challenges, and generally just some really inspiring and motivating thoughts from the author. The second chapter focuses on the usual aspects of the witchcraft practice, so the witch's calendar, the Wheel of the Year, deities and divine beings. tools, altars, sacred spaces, spells and rituals. So at first it does sound like the norm, what you would expect to find in a book for beginners, but the author has put a really unique twist on a lot of these ideas, which I will get to later. The last section of the book looks at your continuing growth as a witch, so things that you really need to consider as you go on in your practice, such as your ethics, cultural appropriation, which is currently a big and important topic at the moment in the witchcraft community, and deeper topics such as shadow work. After each chapter there are activities called Write It and Try It, and they allow you to engage with the topics that have been discussed in the chapter. I did find them really interesting to help evaluate and explore sort of what I wanted my craft to be, but I also didn't feel that I needed to do all of them. I could just leave some of the activities that didn't really mesh with what I wanted. Overall, the book does focus on a solitary practice. I do feel that in recent years, witches have started to shift to being a little bit more independent and solitary in their craft rather than being part of a coven. So it's important to know that if you're considering more of a group practice. Let's start with some of the things that I really loved about the book then. So for one, it was the tone and the style of Kelly-Ann's writing. It was very informal and she comes across as very friendly. And I did find her vibe quite comforting. It is really nice to have this more fun take on the subject, as some witchcraft texts that I've read can come across as quite dry and authoritative. I feel slightly strange referring to the author as Kelly or Kelly-Ann because I don't really know her. So I apologise for that. Although I do feel like I got to know her a little bit when reading the book, she's put a lot of herself into it, but I just apologise for being quite informal by using her first name, but that's just how it's going to be. So anyway, I also love that she addresses the fact that there are already a lot of witchy books out there. If you watched my video on what I'm currently studying to add to my witchcraft practice, then you know that I feel like I have read about all the beginner stuff. There are only so many times that you can read about colours and candle correspondences, casting a circle, setting up an altar. So this is where this book differs really. Kelly encourages a deeply personal practice. She describes as authentic and she's encouraging you to leave behind what doesn't really resonate. When I started my practice, I did do this intuitively. I took what I wanted from my craft and sort of left the rest. Some beginners especially may feel that they have to embrace every single aspect of witchcraft in order to be considered a witch. But like I said, this book is about carving out a witchcraft path that is yours and extremely personal to you. I love how Kelly describes it as carving a path that winds around your psyche and goes to the door of your heart. She provides so many ideas and examples of what you could add to your craft that are completely unique and contemporary. I don't want to give too much away and share everything that Kelly mentions in the book, but I just want to share one example of something that really stood out to me because it's something that I already do. I've never really conformed to the prescribed idea that your altar needs to have candles, a chalice, a thame, a wand, and that they all need to be placed in specific places on the altar to align with the cardinal directions and represent the elements. It just never really appealed to me and it doesn't inspire me. The book then mentions using images on your altar. I do have sort of a mood board that I change regularly depending on the seasons, the wheel of the year, or just depending on how I'm feeling really. And Kelly encourages the use of images that inspire you, so not just deities or things that you would necessarily consider witchy. So if you do follow me on Instagram, then you've probably regularly seen my picture of Princess Mononoke from the Studio Ghibli film. I include her for the deep and the spiritual connection that she has to nature, and I just love the film. At the moment, I have changed this picture out for the picture of Jude and Cardan from Holly Black's fiction book The Cruel Prince. Not really for any particularly witchy reason, I just love the book and I feel a deep connection to the story and the characters. And I also feel that the Fae are very representative of the spring, so I changed that out for my spring altar. So this idea was something that I already did on my altar, but Kelly-Ann has just sort of confirmed to me just how important these books and these films actually are to my witchcraft practice. So not only does she explore unique ideas relating to altars, but also witchcraft tools, deities, sacred spaces, and spellcraft. Moving on to the last section of the book then, as I mentioned, it's about making sure that you are ready to go off on your own into your witchy world. The chapter I appreciated most in that last section then was about scheduling and planning your witchy time. Now, Kelly-Ann does say that it may sound boring and not very rebellious to talk about scheduling and planning, but I am all about planning and organising. I just love it. So it makes so much sense to me because I am definitely that witch that wants to learn and read and research and try everything that excites me. But actually making the time and sticking to the time to do that can be very tricky. So this is definitely a chapter that I'm going to come back to. I feel like I always have to offer good and bad things because I suppose that's what a book review is about. So if I have given a book review that's maybe quite negative just because the book wasn't for me, then I always try to consider what some people might appreciate about the book. And in this case, I wanted to do that vice versa. So I think I've been very positive about this book. So I wanted to share something that some people may see as a negative, I suppose. Although I don't really consider it a criticism, it's just something to consider. There are a lot of areas of witchcraft covered in this book, and some people may wish to have seen a little bit more detail. For example, there are lots of types of divination practices discussed, so what they are, why they're used, how they work, but there are no specific examples of how you may carry out a particular technique, if that makes sense. So I do understand that this is probably because if there was a guided example for each of the techniques, then the book would be huge. So think about it more as a inspiration guide where you can choose areas you want to explore in more depth, really. As Kelly says, there are so many amazing resources out there that do offer that more in-depth guidance on your particular areas of interest. Speaking of other resources, I love at the back there is a little further reading section. Some of those titles that Kelly has recommended went straight on to my TBR pile. Okay, so time for me just to share a few final thoughts. So even though I do consider myself to be quite settled in my practice and my craft, there was still a lot said in the book that I didn't realise I actually needed to hear, and I found to be quite inspiring. I think that even witches who feel deeply ingrained in their witchcraft journey, as long as they're open to change, then this book could definitely help to inspire your craft. Like I said at the beginning, and as Kelly mentions herself in the book, there are lots of books out there that cover witchcraft for beginners, and even more are currently being written. This is not necessarily a bad thing. It does mean that we have lots of options, and what may suit one person doesn't necessarily suit another. I have read a few witchy beginner books that I didn't really like because of things like the style or the way it was written. Maybe just some of the views and the ideas I didn't really agree with, but that's fine because it may work for someone else. It is, after all, a personal practice, so it's personal preference. It is a very subjective thing. With Rebel Witch in particular, I found that I enjoyed Kelly-Ann Maddox's writing style and the tone, and I found that she held a lot of the same ideas and beliefs about witchcraft that I did. As I was reading the book, I did feel like I was agreeing with what she was saying, and I love that she is honest and thoughtful throughout. To use one of Kelly's phrases that she uses in the book, it left me feeling fuzzy while reading. Her personality really shines through in the book, and I love that she just shares little bits and pieces about her own craft. Although the book is called Rebel Witch and is a very contemporary take on witchcraft, she still respects the traditions of witchcraft and how important they can still be in our practice. I really wish I had this book when I first started out on my witchcraft journey. For me, she really nails what it means to be a witch. If you want a copy of Rebel Witch for yourself, then it is currently available to pre-order and it comes out on the 13th of April. I just want to say again thank you to Watkins Publishing and to NetGalley for allowing me to read and review an advanced copy of this book. Okay, that's it for today guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the review and I will see you in the next video.